Hey everybody, my name is Philip Shepard and I'm a local real estate agent here in Northwest Arkansas. And today we're going to be talking about something really important, and that's what is the NWA Northwest Arkansas school system like down here. So this video is going to be broken up into a couple different sections. I went ahead and made chapters down below so you can skip ahead if you want to. So this is how it's going to be kind of broken down in a sense. The first part is going to be talking about the differences between the public sector, the charter schools, the magnet schools, and also the private schools in Northwest Arkansas. And then sprinkled within there, I'm going to drop some information, just some really interesting information about the school systems here that make NWA school systems so much better than other school systems around America. And then we're going to move into why the NWA school system is so much greater than some of the other school systems in America, and why the students around here just have such a hunger and thirst for technology, for STEM, for math, for all these different up-and-coming professions versus other places around the world. And then after that, we're going to talk specifically about some of the best school districts in NWA. And that'll also include the public sector, the private sector, as well as the magnet and also the charter schools. And at the very end, I will highlight some of the best schools around here. So in case you are moving down here, these are some of the schools just to check out to kind of see if your students would fit best in the area. All right, guys, let's jump into it. And I really appreciate your time. The first part of this video is talking about what is the school system like in NWA, in Northwest Arkansas. And so there's 4 different levels of school systems here in Northwest Arkansas. We have the public sector. And so you're obviously most familiar with this. Like if you live in Fayetteville, you go to Fayetteville schools. If you live in Farmington, you go to Farmington schools. That's like the public sector. Our tax dollars goes to paying for the public sector school system. Your kids have buses, they get picked up, they go there. The other type of school districts down here, and they're kind of lumped together, but I will define them a little differently, and that is a magnet school as well as a charter school. Now, a charter school is a publicly funded school system down here that is separate from the public school system, but it's funded by public taxpayer dollars. So they're usually more specific, geared towards, let's say, a more specific topic than a public school system. And now a magnet school, which is also another publicly funded school system down here, is even more niched down when it comes to their school curriculum here. And we will talk about some of those examples later in the video. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is the private school system here. There is a ton of private schools down here, between Christian schools, between new schools, between technology schools, between Montessori schools. So there's so many different schools down here. If you were looking for the private sector, there's so many private schools as well. So that reminds me, I have a 3-day itinerary. So if you're coming down to NWA and you're a foodie, you're into culture, you're into arts, you're into sports, you're into adventure, you're into sightseeing, I have a 3-day itinerary like ready for you to download right below. So the link's right below. Go ahead and download that. So if you're kind of, just overwhelmed with how much to do here like I was, go ahead and download that itinerary. So when you get down here, you can go through the list and see exactly what you want to see, just spelled out for you, so you can see some of the best things down here. Because when I got down here, one of the things that was just crazy was how much there is to do. And so what I did was I created this itinerary to kind of help you focus on some of the most amazing things you can accomplish within the 3 days down here. So go ahead and download that. The link is right below. And when you do come down here, give me a call because we can check out some homes, see some apartments, and see how far your dollar can stretch down here versus where you're coming from. Now let's talk about some of the interesting facts when it comes to the Arkansas NWA school system. Now, when I moved here from Chicagoland area, and so it was amazing to me to see how different the school system is down here compared to Chicagoland. Now down here, one of the most amazing things that I found out was the fact that if you live in Fayetteville, let's say you live in Fayetteville, and you want to send your kid to, let's say, Rogers School System or Bentonville School System. Now, if we are in Chicagoland area, if you live in a city, you send your student to that certain school district in the area. Now, there were sometimes on occasions you could pay extra money on top of your typical tax to send them to a different school system. Like sometimes, for instance, if you pay let's say $5,000, which is a lot of money, you have to send it to another school system with your student as well. Now, the most fascinating thing around NWA, and this is awesome, I love this, is the fact that if you live in Fayetteville and you want to send your kids to Rogers School System, you can. All you have to do is just apply online before obviously a certain date period and then get accepted to the school system. I have never heard, especially in Illinois, I've never heard about this before. And so it's amazing the fact that, let's say you live in Elkins, but you want your student to go to Fayetteville, not a problem. And that's one of the interesting things all about NWA is the fact that you can live in Bentonville, you can live in Elkins, you can live in Lincoln. And the fact is you can go to Fayetteville Library and get a Fayetteville Library card. And the Fayetteville Library is an amazing, amazing place to go and hang out and learn all sorts of things. The school system kind of follows lockstep concept and the fact that you could live somewhere else in the area, but send your student to a different school system in general. I found that fascinating because let's say, for instance, that one school system offers something if your kid has special needs, or if your kid wants to focus more on technology, or if your kid wants to focus more on animal science, you can send your student to that school based on those different interests because they have an interest in them. Another interesting thing about NWA school system when it comes to the charter and magnet schools is the fact that if, let's say, your oldest daughter gets into one of the charter schools, like you apply and they get accepted into the school system there, what happens is that usually some schools are different, but a lot of them are the same, is that the whole family gets acceptance to that school system as well. So it's a really fascinating thing and cool thing, the fact that one of your older siblings or one of your older daughters or sons gets into a school system and they get access to the whole family as well. So it's a lot of times you see a brother, an older brother get into there, and then you see all the brother and sister get throughout there. So you see the teachers, obviously the teachers stay there a long time. And so they start seeing the family members come through of oh, you're a Shepherd or you're a Johnson or whatever the case is. So it's fun to see a whole family pass through a school system and see the benefits of that. And one other little bit of information about the school system in Arkansas in general is the fact that the governor recently signed a law a couple years back requiring every student in Arkansas to be able to graduate. They have to take a coding class or some sort of high technology class, so they are prepared and ready for the future technology, all the technology careers up and coming. And Arkansas is only one of 4 states requires that standard. So California, New York are just one of those other states as well. So kind of interesting the fact that Arkansas is throwing its hat into one of the biggest tech hubs in the world, California, and also the business hub of the world, New York, and requiring their students to be that much educated to graduate high school so they're ready for the future. The Arkansas school system is just well put together, well thought out, and there's so many options available in NWA for your students to come here and learn in just a variety of different things. And so that leads into the next part of this video, and we're going to be talking about why the NWA school system just excels better than other places in America. And the first one is because of the competition. So I love competition between businesses and school systems just because the fact that if the school systems are competing for teachers, for students, for funding, for technology, for innovation, for creativity, they have to make sure that their budgets are budgeted well, that everyone's working as a well-oiled machine, that there's no, problems in the school district because other school systems will rise up and take their funding and students because they're doing a better job than the other school system. And so what this does is it creates a level of competition between all the school systems here. So it just creates this interesting dynamic between the magnet schools, the charter schools, the public schools, and also the private schools, because they're all reaching for the students and funding and trying to get the most out of it to raise their school district to the best it possibly can be. And so it's really interesting to see the school system, one school system, get a brand new Mac lab, and then the next one has to get the same thing to compete against each other so they can kind of keep raising the bar over and over again. And so what happens within this competition is the winners are always the students and also the consumers, like the parents. And on top of that, between, students and parents winning, the teachers also win as well because, with students, teachers' salaries, between superintendents, between leadership, everything just gets slowly rising and rising and rising. And so the whole area just keeps getting better and better within the school system in general, which leads to the next part is the accountability. So the accountability comes from the fact that within Arkansas, like I said before, if you don't like a school system that you're part of, you can just move. I'm not saying move houses, but you can just move school systems. So let's say, for instance, you're in Elkins school systems and maybe it drops the ball, you don't like it too much. Then you could just, take your students and then bring them to Fayetteville, bring them to Farmington, bring them to Bentonville, not a problem. And so what happens is it creates this level of accountability that even in the public school system that says if you're going to remove your students from there, it just puts a damper on that school system because the fact that it has to raise up the bar to make sure that the students are well educated, that they're getting the best ability that they can, they're getting the best education, they're getting the best teachers. And so it creates this accountability because at any point, the parents can just move their students. And so it creates this interesting dynamic and it creates this, level of competition between all the school systems with this level of accountability. And between the competition and the accountability comes rising expectations. Now, what I mean by this is that since we have 3 of the biggest companies in the world located right here in Northwest Arkansas, and since we have these major companies here between mid-size and large-size companies, what happens is it draws these corporate people in from different parts of America, from Illinois, from California, from Texas, from Florida. They all come here to work for these larger companies, beyond the major 3. So what happens is they, obviously they bring families with them, of course. And so what the next part is that with all this new talent coming in, with all all these new expectations coming in. The school has to match those expectations, and the bar is slowly and slowly and slowly always being raised. So between the large college we have, all the tech startups, the new electric vehicle manufacturer coming down here, plus all these new businesses that are starting up right here in Northwest Arkansas and bringing all this new talent, the expectations are just getting higher and higher and higher for education. With all this, and on top of that, the education system has to match the expectations of the people moving here, and so everyone benefits from this. All right, so we've covered some of the interesting concepts when it comes to the Arkansas school system, public, charter, magnet, and private school systems, and we've covered why NWA school system has just, has leaps and bounds ahead of most places in America. So let's talk about the latter part, which is what school systems are really good in NWA. And so I'm going to start talking about some of the top school systems down here. So if you are thinking about moving down here and you are looking to put your students in some of the best education in America, let's talk about some of the best schools down here. And the first one and top rated one in Arkansas in general, and especially in NWA, is the Bentonville school system. It is a high A rating school system. They have so much technology there. They are so far advanced when it comes to education that it's the best in Arkansas by far and one of the best in America. And so Bentonville has a great school system, especially in high school or in sort of middle school, that if you want your student to start getting involved in technology or anything like that, Bentonville is where it's at for sure. And then trailing just a little bit behind is the Fayetteville school system. Fayetteville just built an amazing, technologically advanced, architecturally brilliant high school right downtown in Fayetteville. And so if you're ever coming down to Fayetteville, definitely check it out because it is a sprawling masterpiece. Once again, if your student is into theater, into sports, into technology, Fayetteville High School has a great curriculum for all those students. So if you have one of those students that is into any of those things, definitely check out Fayetteville because Fayetteville High School butts up right next to the college and they utilize their resources all the time. They share resources all the time. So it's one of those interesting things to see a college and a high school leverage each other's resources instead of investing into brand new stuff and using taxpayer dollars to just waste more money. They actually partner up together and use their stuff all the time. Another really good school system down here, and we're starting to talk about the charter magnet schools, is Haas Hall. Haas Hall is a great school system, highly rated and highly respected down here in NWA. So this is an application-only school, so you obviously take your student and apply to the school, and if your student gets accepted, they get accepted into Haas Hall. It's a technologically advanced, really specific school that your student will love. So Haas Hall is known for its, getting ready for college, focused AP classes, and just making sure that your student is ready for college and, master's degree or even doctorate degree. And the other school down here that's really well respected, the New Technology School. So New Technology School sounds exactly what it's like. If your student is into STEM or STEAM or anything with mathematics, technology, engineering, science, New Technology School is where it's at for sure. So they obviously specialize in all those different things. If your student is a tinkerer, building things, robotics, technology, coding, check out New Technology School because it's an amazing place. Definitely recommended for any student wanting to get into that line of field. And the unsung hero of the area is always been Farmington School System. So the Farmington School System is a highly sought out, respected school system on the west side of Fayetteville. The reason that people love Farmington School System so much is because the student to teacher ratio is so good that people just come in droves here to try to find houses in Farmington area. So it's really interesting because they have an amazing sports program. Farmington is still kind of that smaller town feel versus like Fayetteville, which is starting to get a little bit bigger because it's a college town and so many people are coming to Fayetteville to put families here and to grow their businesses. So Farmington has this unique ability and section where they are great at sports, small student to teacher ratio, and they do really well in all their academics. Now I point out those schools because they're ranked higher in the Arkansas school system district. Now what I will mention is that all the school systems around NWA are absolutely fantastic. And the reason, just because it's not ranked in the higher Arkansas school system, doesn't mean they're bad at all. So the interesting thing, like I said before, is that competition, that accountability always makes a school system just continue to raise the bar higher and higher. And so once again, the students, the teachers, the parents, they always win in the long run. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the magnet charter schools a little bit more, and then we'll kind of wrap up the video. There's this really interesting school that I really love called Hope Academy. So Hope Academy is designed for any students that have had any sort of abusive relationships or abuse in their past. And these students need a little extra love and care than the public schools can usually provide. And so these teachers that are working at Hope Academy, they have a special place because they're so motivated and wanting to see these students just excel, even though they might have such a terrible past. And so the Hope Academy is just a great place if you have students that need a little bit of extra love and care. Hope Academy is a great place to send your students and kids. And another really interesting kind of charter, kind of public school system that I really appreciate is Don Tyson School of Innovation. Now, obviously within the name, you kind of understand what the school is focused on: innovation, STEAM, STEM, science, technology, math. And so it is attached to the Springdale school system, but on top of that, it's kind of a separate charter school as well. So it's something you have to apply for. But the Don Tyson School of Innovation is a highly respected, well sought out school system down here in Springdale, Arkansas. And so even if you live, once again, if you live in Fayetteville, if you live in Farmington, if you live in Elkins, you can still apply to Don Tyson School of Innovation and then get your students right in there. And you know, if your student's a tinkerer, into robotics, into coding, definitely send them to Don Tyson. It's a great school. And some other really interesting schools that you should definitely check out if you're looking to move down to NWA is Theoden School. So part of the Theoden school system, which is very fascinating, is that it has its own separate board of directors, so they make their own curriculum, and they're very thoughtful and forward-thinking of how they actually set the curriculum up for the future for their students. I'm going to read actually Theoden's mission statement here, and then this way we can kind of understand what Theoden's about. It's a very unique school. I actually really love it just because they're so forward-thinking of what they're doing. So Theoden is, that says that their core curriculum empowers students to think ethically, critically, and creatively about global issues and their local manifestations. So obviously think globally and locally. And the interesting thing that I really love about Theoden is the fact that they work in a collaborative school system, meaning a lot of the students work together and work through things versus solo projects. So it just kind of shows that Theoden is always thinking outside the box and those what is the future going to hold for students, for curriculum, and they're always pushing the envelope when it comes to making sure their students are always at the very edge of bleeding thought process and thinking and mathematics and different things like that they can say that their students are really the top tier students around the area. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. That's kind of an exhaustive list and understanding of the school system down here in Northwest Arkansas. Again, the school system is amazing down here, and so if you have any specific questions, feel free to either literally call me, leave a comment below, and I'll make sure to get back to you right away. Once again, if you're coming down to NWA to check it out, definitely give me a call. We can look at some homes, look at some apartments, and see how far your dollar can go here versus where you're coming from. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.